Have you ever heard of the Goatman? Not the Greek god Pan, not a mythical satyr from ancient times, but a modern American cryptid that has terrorized communities across the United States for over half a century. A creature that stands 6 to 8 feet tall, with the muscular torso of a man, the legs and hooves of a goat, and according to witnesses, carries an axe and emits a bone-chilling, high-pitched squeal. This is the story of the Goatman, a legend that blurs the line between folklore, urban legend, and possible reality. And trust me, the origin stories are just as disturbing as the sightings themselves. Our story begins in Prince George's County, Maryland, in the late 1950s. This is where the most famous version of the Goatman legend was born, and where it would grow into one of America's most enduring cryptid tales. The first documented encounter happened in 1957. Reverdy Garner and his wife had just pulled into their driveway in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, when they saw something that would haunt them forever. A hairy, wild, man-like creature, unlike anything they'd ever seen, but that was just the beginning. That same year, a young couple parked on Zug Road in Bowie experienced something far more terrifying. They were sitting in their car when suddenly they heard something hitting the top of their vehicle. When they looked up, they saw it, a half-man, half-goat figure, standing upright, wielding what appeared to be a shiny axe. The creature stared at them for a moment before running into the woods. This wasn't an isolated incident. Soon other teenagers parking at local lovers lanes reported having their taillights smashed and windows broken by this mysterious beast. The pattern was clear. The Goatman seemed to have a particular hatred for young couples in parked cars. By the summer of 1962, the legend had taken a much darker turn. The Goatman was now being blamed for the murders of 14 people who supposedly wandered too close to his territory. 2 young boys went missing, one on Halloween night, another while riding his bicycle. Only their personal belongings were ever found. And then there were the animals. Numerous reports of mutilated pets and livestock began surfacing across the county, all attributed to the Goatman. The creature had evolved from a strange sighting into a genuine threat. But here's where it gets really interesting. The sightings didn't stop in the 1960s. In 1976, a landscaper working at the Woodmore Country Club in Mitchellville reported seeing a large, unidentifiable animal prowling the grounds. In 1998, a group of teenagers claimed they encountered a human-like creature in the woods near the same area. And in 2007, a television crew actually captured video footage of a dark, bipedal animal at Woodmore Country Club. Many who saw the footage were convinced they had finally captured the Goatman on camera. So where did this creature come from? The most popular origin story is straight out of a horror movie. According to local legend, there was a scientist named Dr. Stephen Fletcher who worked at the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center, also known as BARC. Fletcher was desperately trying to find a cure for his wife's mysterious illness. In his desperation, he decided to conduct unauthorized genetic experiments. The story goes that Fletcher combined the DNA of a goat with that of his research assistant, William Lotsford. The experiment went horribly wrong, transforming Lotsford into the creature we now know as the Goatman. Consumed by rage and driven mad by his transformation, the Goatman escaped into the woods, where he has lived ever since, seeking revenge on anyone who crosses his path. Now, the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center is a real place. It's actually one of the largest and most prestigious agricultural research facilities in the United States, but there's no evidence that any such experiment ever took place there. Still, the proximity of a real government research facility to the sightings has kept this theory alive for decades. There's another version of the origin story that's equally chilling. This one involves the nearby Glendale Hospital, a massive complex that operated as a tuberculosis treatment center from 1934 to 1981. According to this legend, the Goatman was a patient at the hospital who either underwent experimental treatments that transformed him or was already some kind of hybrid creature kept in isolation. When the hospital fell into disrepair, he escaped into the surrounding woods. Now, here's an interesting detail. Despite widespread rumors, Glendale was never an insane asylum. It was strictly a tuberculosis hospital, but that hasn't stopped people from connecting it to the Goatman legend. The abandoned hospital buildings, which still stand today, have become a popular destination for urban explorers, many of whom report strange encounters and unexplained phenomena. Some versions of the mad scientist story even combine both locations, claiming that Dr. Fletcher used blood samples from Glendale Hospital patients in his experiments. If you're familiar with classic American urban legends, you might notice something about these early Goatman stories. Teenagers parking in lovers' lanes, a mysterious figure with a sharp weapon, a threat that materializes when young people are alone and vulnerable. Sound familiar? It should. These are the exact same elements found in the famous Man with the Hook urban legend. You know, the one about the escaped killer with a hook for a hand who terrorizes young couples parked in remote areas. The Goatman legend appears to serve the same purpose as these classic cautionary tales, warning teenagers about the dangers of parking in isolated areas. It's a story that plays on very real anxieties, the vulnerability of being alone in the dark, the fear of the unknown lurking in the woods, and the consequences of putting yourself in potentially dangerous situations. But unlike the Man with the Hook, which is universally recognized as fiction, the Goatman has crossed over into cryptid territory. People genuinely believe this creature might exist, and that's what makes it so fascinating. Maryland isn't the only state with a Goatman legend. In fact, this creature, or variations of it, has been reported across the entire United States. In Texas, the Lake Worth monster made headlines in 1969. Described as a hairy creature that was part man, part goat, and part sheep, this beast supposedly terrorized the Lake Worth area and famously threw a tire at people. The sightings caused such a frenzy that crowds of people armed with rifles went searching for it. Here's the twist though. The Lake Worth monster was later revealed to be an elaborate hoax, created by local high school students. But even after the confession, some people still believe there was something more to it, that maybe the students were covering up a real creature to avoid mass panic. Texas has a second Goatman legend that's quite different from the first. This one centers around Old Alton Bridge near Denton, now known as Goatman's Bridge. According to this legend, in the 1930s, there was a successful goat farmer named Oscar Washburn who lived near the bridge. Washburn was an African-American man whose success and prosperity angered some local residents during a time of terrible racial tension. One night, a group of men came for him, and Washburn met a tragic end at the bridge. Now, his spirit is said to haunt Old Alton Bridge. Visitors report hearing strange noises, seeing shadowy figures, and experiencing unexplained phenomena. Unlike the Maryland Goatman, this version is explicitly tied to a ghost story and represents the very real horrors of racial violence in American history. In Louisville, Kentucky, there's the Pope Lick monster, another half-man, half-goat creature, but with a disturbing twist. This version is said to live on an old train trestle over Pope Lick Creek. What makes the Pope Lick monster particularly dangerous, according to legend, is that it possesses hypnotic powers. The creature uses these abilities to lure unsuspecting people onto the train tracks, where they're killed by oncoming trains. Tragically, this legend has had real-world consequences. Several people have died over the years attempting to visit the trestle, some genuinely searching for the monster, others just drawn by the legend itself. The trestle is private property and extremely dangerous, but the legend continues to attract thrill seekers. The Wisconsin version is perhaps the oldest Goatman legend, dating back to the 1870s. This creature is described differently from its counterparts. It's more of a primordial monster with red hair and sharp fangs. According to the stories, the Wisconsin Goatman hangs its victims from trees in the woods along Hogsback Road. This version reflects a much older, rural fear of the wilderness and what might lurk in the unexplored forests. It's less about suburban anxieties and more about the primal fear of nature itself. California and West Virginia, California has its own version called Chevo Man, though detailed accounts are harder to come by. And in West Virginia, while not exactly the same creature, there are reports of the sheep squatch, a similar bipedal, part animal, part human creature that shares some characteristics with the Goatman. Now here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. What if I told you there was a real man known as the Goatman who traveled across America and whose bizarre appearance may have inspired many of these local legends? Meet Charles Chess McCartney, an itinerant preacher who spent 6 decades traveling the United States in a goat-drawn wagon. For much of the 20th century, McCartney was something of a folk celebrity, but his appearance was unsettling, to say the least. Inspired by the novel Robinson Crusoe, McCartney and his family wore clothes made from goat skin. He rarely bathed and slept among his large herd of goats, which meant he carried an overpowering musky odor that would announce his arrival long before you could see him. Witnesses described him as being covered in dirt and grime, with an unkempt beard so dirty you could barely see his face beneath it. His hands were caked with so much dirt they were almost unrecognizable as human hands. His wagon was piled high with random items he'd collected from roadsides, old furniture, lanterns, scrap metal, creating a bizarre, almost otherworldly appearance as he rolled into town. But it wasn't just his appearance that made him memorable. McCartney was known for his fiery sermons about damnation and hellfire. Imagine this dirty, smelly man in goatskin clothing, surrounded by goats, shouting about eternal punishment. For people unfamiliar with his nomadic lifestyle, he must have seemed like something out of a nightmare. McCartney traveled through Maryland, Texas, Kentucky, and many other states where Goatman legends eventually emerged. He was active from the 1920s through the 1970s, which perfectly overlaps with when these legends began to spread. It's not hard to imagine how encounters with McCartney, especially at night or in rural areas, could have sparked or reinforced local legends about a Goatman. A brief glimpse of this unusual figure in the darkness, combined with the human tendency to embellish stories, could easily transform a strange traveling preacher into a terrifying cryptid. McCartney passed away in 1998, but his legacy lives on, not just in the memories of those who met him, but possibly in the very legends we're discussing today. So what do we make of all this? Is the Goatman real? Is it just an urban legend? Or is it something in between? The truth is, the Goatman legend endures because it serves multiple purposes and taps into several deep-seated fears. First, it functions as a cautionary tale, warning young people about the dangers of isolated areas. Second, it represents our fear of the unknown and our discomfort with things that don't fit neatly into categories. The Goatman is neither fully human nor fully animal, which makes it deeply unsettling. Third, and perhaps most interestingly, the legend may have roots in real encounters with unusual people, like Ches McCartney, whose appearance and lifestyle were so far outside the norm that they seemed almost supernatural. As for physical evidence, we have numerous reported sightings, police reports of damaged vehicles and attacked animals, and even some video footage, though none of it has been definitively proven to show a Goatman. What we don't have is a body, bones, clear photographs, or any biological evidence that such a creature exists. This puts the Goatman firmly in cryptid territory, possibly real, but unproven. Regardless of whether the creature is real, the cultural impact of the Goatman legend is undeniable. These stories have been passed down through generations, shaping how people view certain locations and influencing popular culture. Old Alton Bridge in Texas has become a tourist destination. The Pope Lick Trestle in Kentucky, despite its dangers, continues to attract visitors. And in Maryland, places like Woodmore Country Club and the roads around Beltsville have become part of local legend and identity. The Goatman represents something larger than just a monster story. It's a perfect example of how folklore evolves in the modern age, how urban legends spread and change, and how real people and places can become the foundation for extraordinary tales. Whether you believe in the Goatman or not, these stories tell us something important about human nature, our need to explain the unexplained, our desire for mystery in an increasingly mapped and documented world, and our eternal fascination with the possibility that there might be more to reality than what we can see. So the next time you're driving down a dark road late at night, especially if you're near woods in Maryland, Texas, Kentucky, or Wisconsin, you might want to keep your windows up and your doors locked, because while the Goatman might be just a legend, then again, every legend has to start somewhere. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Goatman legend, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations of cryptids, urban legends, and unexplained mysteries. Let me know in the comments, do you believe in the Goatman? Have you ever had a strange encounter in any of these locations? Or do you think it's all just folklore and misidentification? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay curious and stay safe out there.